In this week's episode of Hot Boxing Talk, we spoke to two-time world champion Joey Gamache, in fact, three-time if you count the WBU, as well as having our weekly chat with Cyril and Hayden. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hot Boxing Talk. So when I say an absolute legend joins us right here on the Hot Boxing Talk, I mean an absolute legend from the States, Joey Gamache, two-time world champion, actually three-time world champion. He doesn't consider the one championship as a world title. Joey, welcome to South Africa. Welcome to Hot Boxing Talk. Yeah, man, tell us your experience in South Africa. What's it like being here? Considering you fought one South African and you were going to fight another South African, what's it like being in South Africa?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, not many get to travel to South Africa and see how it works. Yeah, it's beautiful here. It's exciting. Be around different people and just see a whole different background.
So let's talk about the South Africans that you fought and that you were going to fight. Joey Gamache fought for the vacant WBA Junior Lightweight Championship of the World. It was when Brian vacated the championship. Tell us about that fight, because you ended up stopping him and winning that contest.
Well, first I was scheduled to face Brian Mitchell, and I got into a car accident, and yeah, I got a cut over the eye, and I cracked my sternum. Yes, there was injury, so we couldn't go on with that fight. And then what happened after that, Brian vacated the title. I believe he was going to fight Tony Lopez. So I didn't think the WBA allowed that to happen. They wanted him to have a defense. So I got the opportunity at Joey Gamache, and it was a dream come true to win the World Championship after so many years being in the game and working hard and coming from where I came from, a small town, Houston, and then Maine being a small state as well. So for me, it just all my dreams that came through.
You mentioned Tony Lopez. Eventually you guys did meet. It was an absolute cracker. You were ahead on that fight, but you lost. Talk us through that fight.
Yeah, well, I knew like his style to go out and box him and move around. Yeah, I threw a lot to the body. I was more of a counter puncher, and I was winning the fight going into the 11th round. And two judges' cards I was ahead, and then the third one was an even. But yeah, he caught me at the end, and I was cut over the eye and swelled. This was closed, and one of those things that, hey, you get caught. I got knocked down, I got back up, but I wasn't in the best condition to go on because I was a little wobbly. But you know, you do what you can. Hey, there's a few of those losses I would like to win one.
And I know we're talking about the losses, but you fought the legendary Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Tell us about that fight, because you fought exceptionally well. You ended up losing, but what was it like fighting a guy who's a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, when I see him come to the weigh-in and he had a regular white pair of underwear, and you're thinking Julio Cesar Chavez, a legend, and just seeing him in person, it surprised me. I said, hey, I'm a fan. And of course I wanted to win and everything, but he was a pretty amazing fighter at any stage. He was a killer early on, and then later when I fought him, he still was very accurate, smart, knew how to find you. And my game was to box and move around, and he's a good accurate puncher, good body puncher, and he knew how to get to you. And it was a great experience.
So Joey Gamache has his last fight in 2000 against the late Arturo Gatti. You turned your back on boxing, or did you think it was a natural progression for you to become a boxing trainer? Did you take a break from boxing, or did you go straight into training fighters?
Immediately after the fight, I was in the gym, right off. I had trained some amateurs while I was fighting too, and taken them to some tournaments. So yeah, it was natural for me to go to be a trainer. And I had to pay my dues, and I worked underneath Emmanuel Stewart as an assistant trainer and learned so much. It's crazy when you go with one of those kind of legend trainers that you really don't feel you're learning a whole lot, but you are somehow inside. And you see things that are fundamentals and basics, and you think there's more to it, but that's what it's all about, the simple basics.
Do you have your own style of training fighters? I mean, a lot of ex-fighters train the fighters the way they used to fight. Are you that kind of trainer, or do you blend more in with the fighter, with the style that the fighter brings to you?
Well, here's the thing, is when I went with Emmanuel Stewart, somehow you have to surrender yourself to that trainer and take a look at his accomplishments and say, okay, look what he's worked with and the champions that he's made. So it kind of makes you break things down and build from the beginning. And you more or less, you keep some things from your style, but more you adjust it. And I felt like with Stuart, that experience really offered me a lot, just in how fundamental it was.
So I've been with this gentleman in America. I've been with this gentleman in Sweden. I'm now sitting with him here in South Africa, and he's talking to us, two-time world champion Joey Gamache, right here on Hot Boxing Talk. So this weekend we saw Artur Beterbiev absolutely destroying Ezekiel Moderna. Walked right through him. Your opinion on that fight?
I think we're seeing levels to this game. Artur Beterbiev is definitely a quality fighter, a quality amateur fighter coming through the ranks. So yeah, levels, as I say again. Dropped Moderna 4 times. Moderna was practically begging for the fight to be called. Yeah.
You talk about levels. He's now 10-0, 10 knockouts. Cyril, this kind of puts things in perspective of where Tommy Oosthuizen was, or where would you rate Tommy right now? Because there's talk of him making a comeback for real still. Where does he fit in right now as the light heavyweight?
I think he has a long way to go to build himself back up. He was getting close to the top guys, but you know, do we even know if he can still fight like he used to? I don't know. That's a big question he'll have to answer in his next fight against Daniel Bruvet.
Yeah, so there's talks about him fighting Daniel Bruvet. That fight happens. How does it go?
Well, I think we expect Tommy Oosthuizen to walk through, perhaps even a knockout as well towards the end of the round. But I'd go for a points decision because both guys, you know, Tommy is a little bit rusty as well.
And also, I mean, what weight group is this going to be? Because Brewer hasn't made the light heavyweight division for a while. Tommy's been battling with the scales. What fights is going to be at? What limit?
That's an interesting thing because if Tommy's fit, then he's a light heavyweight. But Bruvet hasn't, as you say, fought in the light heavies for a long time. So it's actually, I was actually quite surprised when I saw, I think on social media, that it would be a light heavyweight fight. So I don't know. I would have thought if they all do fight, it would be more a catch weight. Maybe, I don't know.
Right, let's get back to Artur Beterbiev. Where does he fit in the light heavyweight picture right now? Because he's 10-0, 10 knockouts, and he's a murderous puncher, isn't he?
Yeah. I'd be right up there with the champions as well. Just because he's had 10 fights doesn't mean he can't go with the best. We've seen guys like Usyk as well, who've had a couple of fights, but they have so many amateur fights and competing at the top level that, well, you got to put him just below the champions because he hasn't fought the champions yet.
Yeah, and he's been out for over a year now. Is he ready for a world title shot?
I think 1 or 2 more fights, but yeah, I think he's close. He's ready. He's close to being ready.
This weekend here in South Africa, we have the Super 4. The start of the Super 4, we got Mickey Nielsen against Johnny Miller. How does that fight go?
You know, I've seen Mickey Nielsen firsthand. The guy's got great punching power, and yeah, it's I don't know what's going to happen. There may be a stoppage to Nielsen.
Then you got the IBO vacant IBO minimum weight championship of the world against Sio Bonga Sio from East London, and Hotbox Gym's very own Simpiwe Konko from Umtata, not based in Joburg. How's that fight going to go?
I think that's a very interesting fight. You've got 2 guys with different styles. You know, Sio's more slick, more counter punching, whereas Konko goes forward a bit more. So it will be interesting, the contrast of styles. But I would go with a late stoppage for Konko.
Kevin Lerena goes up against Robert Belanti, a bit of a veteran spoiler, you could say. How does that fight go?
You know, Kevin hits hard. He comes to fights, good hand speed. You know, I don't think Belanti's going to really give him much of a challenge. Not a natural cruiserweight. Took a beating against Kalenga. So I see Kevin being a natural cruiserweight, coming up against him and taking him on points.
Do you think Belanti can still make light heavy, considering he has campaigned as a light heavy, or do you think he's now fully blown into the cruiserweight division?
I think if he really pushed himself, I think he could, yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, if you look at him now, he does look a little soft in the middle, so maybe he could still make that light heavy.
So here's the thing, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Who's going to be fight of the night Saturday night?
Well, the main event's definitely going to take fight of the night for me.
And that is?
Sio Bonga Sio and
because there's some people think that one of the Super 4s will be the main event or whatever it is. So you think the minimum weight championship. Who do you think is going to be fight of the night?
I have to agree with Hayden.
Don't you guys not agree? I mean, come on, yeah.
I think both guys are also, I mean, rated by the WBA. they're both very good fighters. It's a fight that I can't wait for. I mean, the other fights, yeah, well, great. Obviously, you want to see all the fights, but yeah, the main fight is the one to look out for.
But the overall winner will be boxing, and the two gentlemen, Hayden and Cyril, have spoken right here on Hot Boxing Talk. So that's the end of this week's show of Hot Boxing Talk. Catch us again next week, where we talk nothing but the pugilistic art of boxing.